And we're back.
I apologize for my death. It was embarrassing and humbling.
Well, I'm glad that you have survived and come back from that.
Had to change hats, but we're okay.
It's all right.
So, what were you saying? We were talking.
We left off talking about. I was talking about trying to get my book
Right.
into the bookstore, and the mild drama that I was having with Barnes and Noble. So I was saying I'm now at a point where I'm trying to decide whether having my book in a bookstore is something that I care deeply enough about to continue trying to make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
Because it seems like it's I was under the mistaken impression when I started that once I had my book in a bookstore, that bookstore would continue to order it and I wouldn't have to do
Right.
a lot of follow up with them, and that does not seem to be the case.
No, it's constant marketing.
So I don't know if I have the spoons to just like go to every single bookstore in the neighborhood like once a week and make sure they still have my book. Like that
Right.
feels like a lot. Especially considering even when they do sell them, I don't make that much money off of them.
Right.
It's like because I was strongly encouraged by several of the booksellers that to give them like the biggest discount that is available on Ingram Spark,
Mm-hmm.
and I see where they're coming from, and that like I don't really have a following, and they had no proof that my book was going to sell or whatever, but
It did.
it did. So now but then they don't keep it's not selling enough that to motivate them on their own to go buy more.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know. I've definitely been looking into like what are the alternative. Like I really like the idea of it being on a shelf, and
Mm-hmm.
I like the idea of like befriending booksellers and having somebody who's like championing me to their readers and telling people about my book and whatever. But that might be a thing that extroverted authors do.
Or it may be something that you do with one or two booksellers.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm like, you have 1,000 books. I can't imagine you don't go to any bookshops.
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, um, yeah, I do. There of the four that had it in stock. There are two that I think I probably would continue trying to like build relationships with, just because they're fun people and they seem to like genuinely be interested in my book, and they just maybe got distracted by all the other things that they're doing and running their bookstore. So like I may go back to them, but I don't know. It's there's so many other ways to sell books at this point that I'm
Yeah.
kind of I don't know. And it's been really interesting to try to figure out the business side of it with the marketing and pushing, and then figuring out, is it going to be like, do I need to push more on ebooks or more on paperbacks, and using my own website, using other people's websites and things like that. And I only have one book out, so it's not really like there's that much to work with, but
Right.
I am sort of looking down the road at like what it's all going to be like. And most of the authors that I've done interviews with for Indie Author Magazine have been, seeing the joys of direct sales, and I'm just like that. I could see where I see the draw. I understand why that would be a good way to go.
Right.
I don't currently have like, until I have enough books out that I can afford to do more marketing and buy ads and stuff. Direct sales is not something I'm going to be able to be very successful at, because nobody knows I exist. So why would they buy stuff directly from me?
Right. I see what you're saying.
So I'm sort of working in that direction.
Is your creative life just these books?
Um, it is mostly these books right now. I've been trying to
And your
figure out
TikToks.
what
And your TikToks.
and my TikToks, and yeah. So I've been making videos for TikTok
Yeah.
where I am trying to get back into tarot, because it was a major part of my first book, and it didn't figure as much into my second book. And I think that was because my personal routines had changed and I
Right.
wasn't doing it daily anymore. And I feel like it is something that my characters would do more than I am having them do. So I need to get into that more in order to make it feel authentic when I put it in the book.
Right.
And so I'm trying to get back to practicing so that I can like know the cards better and um, be more intentional about how I'm reading them and listen to my intuition and all of that. But I don't know. TikTok is also a thing that I'm just like, I don't know. I went to do a video like right after, in between. So my husband and I have a bedtime routine where I put the younger child to bed while he's getting the older child
Right.
ready, and then there's a gap of about 20 minutes in between when I'm done with the younger one and when the older one is ready for me to come say goodnight.
Hmm.
So for a few days, I've been doing the tarot reading for TikTok in that time period. So I
Yeah, I
came
saw that.
downstairs and I was like, all right, I've got 20 minutes where I'm in here by myself and it's quiet and I can whatever. And I did one and I felt really confident and I'm like talking like I'm talking to a person. And I'm like, I said some stuff and I thought I was kind of funny and kind of like deep at the same time. And I'm like, oh, this is great. And then I went to hit the button to go to the next thing and the whole video just disappeared.
Oh no.
And I'm like, I don't know what I did,
Oh
but
no.
it's just gone. So then I was like, all right, I'm not, and that's like the third time that that's happened. Not today, but like
Let me
since
ask
I
you a
started.
question though.
Yeah.
How did it feel when you were talking and you just felt you were feeling yourself and you felt confident, you felt educated, and you felt erudite?
Yeah.
I like, how did that feel for you?
I mean, it definitely felt better than when I first like the more that I do this, the more confident I am in it and the more comfortable I am doing it.
Yeah.
Because I definitely like when I first started trying to do any kind of content to try to sell my book, it was like, well, I'm not going to show my face. And I'm not going to have my voice on and I'm not going to it's just going to be music and pictures and whatever content text that I can think of. And then like I started doing stuff with a voiceover and then I started doing like just my face and then I was like, all right, well, all right, we're all in now. Just
We're just gonna do the stuff.
let's just do it. And so yeah, so now I've been trying to concentrate on like pretending I'm talking to a person instead of worrying about how many people are following me and to just like talk to somebody.
Hmm.
And that has felt better. But it's just so weird because I cannot for the life of me figure out when something is going to do well.
Right.
And it doesn't seem to matter what time of day I do it. It doesn't seem to matter which music I use or
Hmm.
which hashtags I use. Just sometimes stuff goes and I get, 1,000 views and sometimes it gets 10.
Right.
And most of the time it gets like 200, 300. So,
Right. I'm in the same place. My videos make 2 to 300, but on the other hand, my content is all over the place
mm,
because it's supposed to be the Caramel Sugar Evil channel, which is mostly Shaman States
mm-hmm,
and affiliated stuff. And I have a whole, like, I have a whole spooky section, but I'm doing nothing but channeling, like, for days. And I was my content is just all over the place, but it is authentically who I am. So I just
mm-hmm,
stopped worrying about it. I do plan to have a live gameplay of Stabby again.
mm-hmm,
I want to have it before the new cards come in and then one after the new cards come in. But I do it because I think it's cool.
mm-hmm,
And I'm really trying to get away from like the quest for likes
mm-hmm.
because it takes the joy out of it. Number one, I'm like, we already know we're working for a living, right?
Right.
We already know this, and we're both at that age where we pretty much know what we're going to do and what we're not going to do, right?
Yeah.
And you go, you do some things, you're like, no, that's not the move, and you drop it. But I'm trying not to fall into the pitfall that I did earlier in my career of just doing it because that's what everybody is making. That's where everybody's making their success, right?
Mm-hmm,
And it was easy for me to do because I was when I was coming in my career, I was coming along alongside of a lot of stellar talent,
mm-hmm,
right? And I would see what was working for them, But once I sat back, took a few steps back and kind of thought about it, a lot of these people have the same kind of business mindset,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I only mention it because it isn't mine, right?
Right.
And it took me so long to figure that out and figure out that I wasn't the problem.
Mm-hmm.
The problem was I I just didn't like this. That wasn't what I was built for. And so I had to spend a lot of time figuring out what is the stuff I'm built for, because I'm not going to talk about anything that I don't absolutely love,
Mm-hmm.
right? I spend a very long time being forced to evangelize. I ain't telling you nothing about nothing unless I enjoy it, right? And so the things that I'm doing, I have to enjoy, or else I'm not going to talk about it, right? And now that I'm truly understanding that, it's taken a lot of the load off. But on the other hand, I still haven't yet found that balance between the stuff I love and the stuff that's going to keep consistently putting money in my bank account. Because at
Mm-hmm.
the end, I would do this for free, but I'm not gonna.
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
I'm not gonna do this for free. And so I'm still trying to find that balance. How I want to go about telling the story of Shaman States, telling the story of the games, talk about the lens, all of that. And so, another what that I'm working on is another podcast. And it's a simple essay podcast, essay monologuing thing, where I write about something for 500 words. Much like you, I was also an English lecturer,
Mm-hmm.
right? And my students, I taught composition,
Mm-hmm.
composition, English 101, English 201, and then special subjects. But one thing that is always a good practice to have is writing out something every week.
Mm-hmm.
Writing something out every week. And that was one of my assignments. Monday was 500 words on. Give me your 500 words.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be about anything, whatever
Mm-hmm.
was important to you, and it had to be written in the style of your primary discourse community, which is discourse communities is a concept that as you grow up in your development, the people and environments around you
Mm-hmm.
affect you and your culture, what you believe, and how you speak, right? The primary discourse usually is the breadbasket of your culture, your moral compass, and the filter with which you see the world. So I asked them to write it in a way as if you were talking to somebody in your discourse community, which is
Okay.
not business standard English. And I had to remind people of that. I'm like, you can write in some pidgin language that only you and four people know. You can write it in Spanglish,
Mm-hmm.
right? You can use profanity, right? Because the goal is not it being perfect. The goal is not that it hits the standards of some English teacher from 15 years ago, or your parents religious friends, right? Or your
Mm-hmm.
pastor. It is expressing who you are and what you love in the way that you are most comfortable with. Teaching people how to express themselves, how to put these stories on paper. I learned so much about the lives of my students because of that excitement.
Yeah.
But I learned so much because I may be the first person professionally or an
Mm-hmm.
authority figure that said that your voice is valid, and
Mm-hmm.
that's the voice I want to hear. I want the voice that you want to develop. And I had forgotten my own lesson when it comes to um, being out there and learning how to talk and learning how to market. See, I'm bringing it back around. Learning how to market. Oh, because I'm very, I'm shy. I'm reticent.
Mm-hmm.
And people find that hard to believe, but I really I am an extreme introvert.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, if I came to visit your house, you probably would forget that I am there. Seriously, you would forget that you have a house guest, right? I'm like, your dogs wouldn't, but you would, right? And I don't, I like being recognized as far as it allows me to help
Mm-hmm.
because people know that I am a resource to which to tap in and get help, right? And it never drains me because I set those boundaries because I am introverted, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I take a lot of time to rest, but I've never sought fame. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
do this to be popular, right? I did this because it's fun. I did it because it's important.
Mm-hmm.
It is absolutely important to consider the creative portions of your life as valid. It is important that people recognize that a lot of the hardships and heartaches that they have can probably be pinned down to someone taking away something creative in your life. There's a lot of older folks that I know who, when they talk about, they'll complain to me about the kids not contacting them and not talking to them. And instead of trying to address what they did to the kid, I just go back and I just ask them, what is that thing that they took from you when you were a kid? What dream did they
Mm-hmm.
take from you when you were a kid? Right?
Mm-hmm.
And then after get past the whole, there's a moment of contemplation, and then there's a very small whisper of a thing that's adjacent to the real thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you talk, and then before you know it, you're in the middle of a hyperfixation, like rain of information, just streaming of information as they talk about this passion that they have not been able to express all this time. And that's the reason why I do it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the reason why I'm involved in this. That's the reason why I made the transition. That's the reason why I'm doing this podcast. Like for us personally, trying to dig through and trying to find our one thing, trying to find a way to express that creative part of us that may have been taken away. Because I'll tell you this truth. A lot of what I'm doing, jumping from this thing to that thing to that thing, is going down a mental bucket list of the
Mm-hmm.
small dreams that were taken away from me. All right. And even in us kind of fumbling and bumbling around, or at least I'm going to say I'm fumbling and bumbling around
No,
with
we are.
with this, I hope it is my hope and prayer that somebody hears it and goes, I am not the only one.
Right.
And they may not express it to anyone else but themselves in that moment. My hope is that our podcast, in some way, in someone's mind, is that piece of cushion that keeps them from beating themselves up, whether or not they pursue the creative life or not, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that to me is the mark of success. Recently, somebody sent me a TikTok of them telling folks that they got into merch because they heard me talk about it and it's helped them, right?
Mm-hmm.
I probably went and bought all the stickers and they are so cool. And I will give you the information. Her name is Shay. Shay August. That's who that is. It was Shay August.
Is it SHAY?
Oh, it's SHAI.
Yeah.
Sierra Hotel Alpha Indigo.
Okay.
August. And she was talking about that. I was so incredibly pleased, not because I got a name drop, which is always kind of cool, but it was because she found it useful. She found it to be a help. She found it to be it. It was something that helped her business,
Mhm.
right? It was a solution to her problem, right?
Yeah, that's amazing. That's a really great feeling.
That's my personal heroine, friend. It really, really is.
Yeah,
I
I mean
can't get
some of
enough
the
of it. It is. I am just sitting up here just kind of marveling at the fact that I get to do this for a living. People pay me money to hear my stories, and people, when they are having a hard time or they're kind of in the dark or kind of lost, something that I say is the little match that lights the way a little further. It's the little glimmer of hope. I wish I could live off of that because
right?
it's the best thing going. It is
Yeah.
the absolute best thing going. I can't. It is so good that there are times when I absolutely do not feel I deserve it. I don't know if I told you this before, but like the last 20 books I was at, um, I was sitting in one of the green rooms just bawling because it was just so good,
Mm.
right? It was
Mhm.
just so good, and it was also so much. I was like, what did I deserve to be here? What did I do to deserve to be around so many creative people who crave to live this creative life,
Mhm.
right? It is just so yummy for my soul, and it's yummy for my mind. And I intend to contribute to it for as long as I can and as hard as I can, which is the reason why one of the projects that I'm working on, another what, is the CK reference document.
Mhm.
Is going to be a site, and I'm loading stuff on there now. It is like every recipe I have ever known. Eventually, this will have like every recipe I've ever known, how to make every body product, how to do all my homesteading stuff. Because you can give me $200 and I can make you like a year's supply of soap, lotion, that shaving balm, that isn't shaving cream, but you put it on and turns into lotion. And then that same thing is also the cleansing balm that they're selling for like $25 a jar. All that and perfume. And in the kitchen, I cook in 8 different cuisines. I know how to bake, and I know how to
Wow.
pickle and jam, and I make mead, and I just did my first batch of kombucha, and I love kefir. I'm just like all this information, and I'm putting it in one place.
Mhm.
Everything, like the measurements for my cards, right? The
Mhm.
manufacturers I go to, I'm like, I will tell you for the ask it.
Right.
I don't.
That was really helpful.
I was like, I am not a gatekeeper because I want folks
No.
to do this with. And that's the goal eventually. Like, and the same thing with the Sugar Evil games. All of that information is going to go up on its own part of the site. So,
Mhm.
folks, if you want to build your own game, all the components that I use are there. All you have to do is put your own names on stuff. And
That's
that's what I
really cool.
want because for an author,
Mhm.
for someone like you or me, who has the capability of completing a work.
Mhm.
And I'm going to be very clear. If you are capable of taking a book from an idea to a published thing, right? All
Mhm.
those skills you learn overlap to other creative things.
That's true.
Right. Once you went through the process of learning how to publish this book, wrapping your mind around ordering those enamel pens
Mhm.
was much easier.
Oh yeah.
And let me tell you that game design, there is a lot of overlap.
Mm.
In comic books, there's a lot of overlap. In
Mhm.
merch, there's a lot of overlap. In courses, there's a lot of overlap. In podcasting, there's a lot of overlap.
See, and all of that stuff sounds really fun and really exciting. And the problem that I tend to have
Mhm.
is that I want to do all of it and I don't have time. so so then I get, the paralysis where I can't choose because there's too many
Mm.
things and so then I just don't do anything.
Oh, same
Um
here. Same. which is once again the reason why we're doing this. Because
Right.
here's my trick. Here's my
Mhm.
trick. Everybody that I'm working with wants to do a different thing. No, seriously. Everybody
Mhm.
that I'm working with has a different goal, right?
Mhm.
And because now I am an independent contractor of a blue collar gin, now that
Mhm.
I can sit up there and spend this time, I'm like, sure, I'll sit with you. I'll take an hour of your time
Mhm.
and help you work through this thing so you're not doing it alone. And we both get something. You get whatever it is that you're trying to do,
Mhm.
and I get a way to express um, this particular creative itch,
Mhm.
right? And see if it's something that I want to do past a certain threshold, like a
Mhm.
couple of seasons. A couple of
Mhm.
seasons, you'll know whether or not you want to continue to do this podcast, right?
Right.
Right. And with my game, I'm working, like I said, I'm working with Kit Jennings on that. She wants to build her own game. She wants to build a
Mhm.
road rally game, right?
Yeah.
And we're putting together, I purposefully had a road rally portion because I love the open road, number one,
Mhm.
but purposefully developed it as part of the Sugar Evil game system so she could have the resources to build her game, right? And then I have
Yeah.
the SRD. That means that other people can make their version of this game.
Mhm.
And so I'm quite sure that eventually we will find an SRD for a game for your universe.
I am sure. I mean, I've already. I mean, whenever you start talking about your grimoire, I started one
Mm-hmm.
for my Ream people
Right.
like 2 months ago. So I've been I created a page on Ream for subscriptions, and I have 3 levels, and the first level is just access to the books that I'm writing as I'm writing them.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second one was going to be access to the research that I'm doing in order to write the books.
Right.
And so I'm creating a like set of worksheets and like a nonfiction collection of essays about all the stuff I'm learning about witchcraft,
Mm-hmm.
all the stuff I'm learning about tarot, all the stuff I'm learning about herbalism. I did Wiccan holidays. Um, the problem has been remembering to go in and update it as I'm going through all this stuff because I was doing it. One of the reasons that I thought this would be a good thing was I was like, part of why I really like writing these books is doing the research and learning all the new stuff
Mm-hmm.
that I'm and I was like, so other people probably would like to know the stuff that I'm learning too. And so on the one hand I'm sharing it with them, and then on the other hand it's helping me to keep it organized so that I can find it again later when I'm like, what was that one herb that did that thing that I what and she needed it for something. um because my book bible is just a
Oh
mess,
yeah.
because I changed so many things while I was writing the first book and then I never went back and fixed it. So that's one project, is I need to go back through my book bible and correct all the things that changed
Mm-hmm.
from the third draft to the 15th draft of the first book. And then the second project is this nonfiction, everything you ever wanted to know about magic and witchcraft and anything associated with magic and witchcraft. I need to be more like on top of. I was doing pretty well for a while because I had one subscriber, and I was like, I will do it for that one subscriber. I will be responsible, and I will make sure that she gets a worksheet every month, or it was 2 worksheets a month, and updating the thing and whatever. And then I don't know what happened. She decided it wasn't worth it anymore. She dropped out, so
Oh.
she's not subscribing anymore, which is fine. Like it's her $5 to spend somewhere else. But like, um, I totally lost the motivation when I was like, oh, she's not there anymore. She doesn't. There's Why am I putting this stuff in there? There's nobody looking at it.
Right.
um, but really, it was for me. I need to do it for
Right.
me so that I have the stuff.
Right. No, I get that. So why don't we do this? And I'm going to say that you can cut this out if you want to, or you can leave it in this. But why don't we do this? Why don't we make kind of the center focus of this podcast, like the assignment portion, about
Hmm.
our book Bibles.
Okay.
And so that way we're going to talk about all of this, but we're also, when we talk about, oh, what are you going to do? This is what I'm
Hmm.
working on.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm doing this just to steer it in the direction of, yeah, my the SRD and all of that are book Bibles.
Hmm.
They're glorified book Bibles. And since I'm also working on 4 sites now and having to brush up on my PHP,
I don't know how you do all this stuff.
huh?
It's so many. I don't know how you keep up with all these things. You're doing so many different things.
Oh, okay. It stems from, actually, it stems from being raised with a lot of homesteading skills.
Hmm.
It really does. My family was blue collar working class,
Hmm.
but they were also immigrants essentially, and brought with them, they knew, okay, it's knowing how to organize time and knowing how to develop skills very quickly and plopping them into the process. So when I was in tech, my master's degree is in tech com and digital literacy, how we communicate with technology and how communication has been changed by technology, particularly in the realms of the folks I would call Generation X or Generation Beta, the ones
Hmm.
who bridge between full analog,
Hmm.
right, before the digital age and the post digital age, right?
Hmm.
So I learned
Hmm.
a lot of skills and I learned them fast because I could do that. But when I was working in tech, I learned programming
Hmm.
and I was with a startup that was WordPress sites. And so I figured out a little bit of everything so I was knowledgeable.
Hmm.
And now that I'm not doing that anymore, I still know my way around, but I have to sit down and relearn these things. And
Hmm.
so it just comes from being able to learn skills quickly
Hmm.
to competency. And that's the reason why I'm able to do a lot of things, because that, and I don't do a lot of things all the time. I do a little bit of this and a little bit of that and a little bit of this.
Hmm.
Like today, in terms of these cards, I drew an illustration of the fourth slime and I submitted it to the artist and I'm waiting to hear back. That's a thing, right?
Hmm.
But I'm also going to spend the rest of this evening creating vehicles for the game. But that's
Hmm.
one small thing.
Okay.
And the hope is, when, as we're going along with this podcast and we talk about, oh, what articles are you going to update for your book Bible?
Hmm.
That's one small thing, right?
Yeah.
And the 500 words is one small thing. And those accumulate to bigger things, because once you saw my book Bible and saw how
Hmm.
vast it is. That is an accumulation of a bunch of small wins.
Hmm.
All right, and that's how I'm able to get a lot of things done, and that's how I'm able to do a lot of different things, because they're always small. Another thing is that they are only in certain realms. You'll always see me making a card deck. You will
Hmm.
always see me making a game. You will always see me making an enamel pen. You'll always see me making a sticker. You'll see me try a few things out here and there or make variations of those things, but
Hmm.
it's always the same kind of things. All right.
Hmm.
And they all now are tying back into one central thing, which is caramel sugar evil. So that's how I kind of harnessed my need to want to do everything. And I do it by literally doing everything, but in very small, manageable pieces, and everything is facing towards one goal. And
Hmm.
so that's that answer. I didn't know if you were expecting another TED talk, but yeah, that's how I get everything done. I'll do a bunch of Little itty bitty things.
A bunch of little things. Yeah. I need to get back to I have these waves of productivity
Hmm.
where I get super organized and I like have a list and these are the things that are going to get done and this is the schedule by which I'm going to make said things happen,
Hmm.
and it lasts for like 2 months and then something happens and as soon as I fall off it's like, well, we're not on the schedule anymore, the schedule no longer exists.
And then you recover and then you make another list. That
Yeah,
isn't a
yeah.
failure. That is a cycle. It is a pattern. And I'm not being cute. It's
Hmm.
it's it's one of the things where you have all this energy, you get all this energy to get it all organized, and then you rest.
That's true.
Your body and your brain rest. And that's just as productive as doing all the go, go, go. As someone who lifts weights, I get a lot of joy. I get an immense amount of joy from picking up heavy things and putting them back down. But it's just as important to rest. That's why you
Hmm.
don't work out your entire body every day. You do chest and back on certain days, and legs on another day, and arms another day. Why? So you can let them rest. Because when they
Hmm.
rest, they come back stronger. Same thing with you. You do a lot of activity, and then you stop, you rest. But
Hmm.
you haven't lost the progress. You've just lost the momentum and the motivation, right? It is probably still 75% more organized than it was when you started this.
That's true.
Please look at that 75%. Please look at the part that was actually that stayed organized.
Yeah.
And
I
then you sit up there and you gather that 25% and you go like, okay, what don't I like about this?
Hmm.
Right? And what don't I like about it? And is it going to be that much of a strain to like it? Or is there another way this can be accomplished in a way that I do like it? And if I can't, does it really need to be done? And that's a very important question to ask because we do a lot of things because we think we should or we need to,
Hmm.
or it's what's expected of us. All it does is frustrate everybody and waste your goddamn time. And so sometimes you just let that stuff lie. What are you liking this week?
I just finished Weyward by Emily Hart. It's a novel. It's her debut.
Oh,
Because I'm trying to go out of my way to read other people's witchy books and other people's debuts, and this is a debut that is also a witchy book. It's trad, which is not exactly what I'm looking for, but there is a limit to how many witchy books there are
right.
out there. So, but it was really interesting because she's got it. It's split into three separate timelines, and so like there's you're introduced to Altha, and she's on trial for witchcraft in the 16 whatever when the trials
Right.
happened. um and hers is told in first person, past tense, like she's writing in a journal. And then the next point of view is Violet, and she's in World War II, or she's living during World War II, but she's a teenager. She lives in a big house. Her father is like a viscount or something.
Mhm.
And so, but she's got like witchy tendencies, and it turns out like her mother was probably, there were rumors that her mother had bewitched her father. And so there's a bunch of interesting things going on in there. Hers is told in third
Hmm.
person, and then the third character is Kate, and she's present day. And she starts out in London, but then she runs away from an abusive relationship and ends up in this little cabin that was left to her by her great aunt, who she doesn't know and never doesn't remember having ever met. And but it turns out that like Violet from the World War II storyline is the great aunt
Oh.
of this girl. So it goes back and forth between the three of them,
Hmm.
and it's really interesting how she differentiates the voices, and then even like the formatting for Altha's storyline has bigger margins,
Right.
so it looks more like a journal.
Hmm.
Even though like the font is the same all the way through, but like the layout is different on Altha's section, and then having one of them be having that one be first person when the other two are third person. And then I can't remember if Kate's is present tense or not, but there was something else that set them apart. So it was really obvious, even though that like the chapters all had the character's name at the top, so you knew. But like even without that, you could tell pretty
Mhm.
quickly. Um, but it was really interesting to see, themes repeat across timelines throughout this family. Of their like they all have sort of sketchy relationships with men, and and then they all have like deep connections to nature, specifically to like insects and crows and things.
Nice.
And so that it was really good. It was a lot bigger than I thought it was when I ordered it, but like, so it took a lot longer for me to read than I had expected. But it was really interesting. And it kind of made me stop and think about some of the things in my book, when I had been in the planning process and I had let betas read it and I had let other people, and people were like, "Oh, this part's too complicated," or "This part's too complicated," and I was like, and now I'm wondering if maybe I let other people's opinion sway me further than completely was necessary, because this book is super complicated, but it's really good.
Right.
So um, it might just be a matter of honing my like writing skills to allow me to be at that higher level of complexity for a story.
Hmm.
And in the meantime, it probably was for the best that I like cut some stuff back and limited it
Right.
down. But because I don't know, this is her debut as a trad pub author, so I don't know how many books she wrote before that. Before by the time she got an agent and got all of that
Right.
stuff. So where my debut is, it's the second novel I've ever written.
Right. So yeah, there is a lot of things to consider. Like she may have had a team. She may
Hmm.
have had experience writing complicated documents.
Hmm.
Or she may be the kind of reader who can hold those kinds of things in her head. Right?
Hmm.
People tend to have a head for a mind and figures and could hold those in their heads.
Hmm.
It's absolutely, it sounds like it's a strength she absolutely does have. And I would be
Yeah.
interested to hear her background on like what she was doing before she was doing this. And I bet you anything it's in STEM.
Yeah, I'd have to look it up because I haven't. I am definitely going to try and learn more about her and probably read her. She's got another book,
Oh.
either it's I think it's on pre-order right now. Is her second book. Was one of the reasons that I moved this one to the. I have a stack, like I have an actual stack TBR over here, and I saw that she had a new book coming out. The new book is about sirens.
Oh.
Um, And I was like, that sounds really interesting. But I was like, I can't buy it if I haven't read this one. I don't know if this one turns out not to be good, then maybe I shouldn't buy that one, even though it sounds
Right.
good. So, but it was good. So now I probably will buy it too.
Let me know how that sound one goes because
Oh, yeah.
I absolutely I find sirens, succubus, and incubus, succubi, incubi really, really interesting, intriguing.
Hmm.
And it
Hmm.
always reminds me of that meme about what if you're like not attracted to the opposite sex, what the sirens sing about, right?
Hmm.
And the fact that they would be able to sing about fettuccine alfredo or cinnamon toast
Yeah.
crunch or you love the mothman. Like
Whatever you love, they just,
yes,
yeah.
whatever you love. And that could literally be a legit thing.
Hmm.
So did I talk about Torque the last time?
Yes. You said that was where you were playing it in order to learn how to do the Medusa's trucking
Right.
company
But did
game.
I mention it's the thing I'm loving? Because if not,
Um,
I have a bunch of things that I'm really a fan of this week. And so,
okay.
um, if I haven't talked about Torque, I'm going to spend some time talking about it. Torque is a road rallying role playing game developed by Will Jobst,
Hmm.
Jobst,
Hmm.
and not only is it absolutely fun, easy to get into, it's two games in one. The first part is the road rally bit, where they originally have it kind of rated PG, like the 70s death race, cannonball run type situations, or
Hmm.
maybe something like Highwayman, where you have a helicopter that's also the semi or whatever.
Oh,
that
okay.
portion, and then they have the role playing portion where you're building community. And I love, especially in the Powered by the Apocalypse space and the indie game space. It can be about a lot of clacky dice and beating up a lot of monsters, but it just as well could be trying to seduce a cryptid,
Okay.
right? Or it's about building a community. There's a lot of community builders in the Powered by the the indie game space, and I'm loving that. I'm like, there's a lot of space for cozy games, um,
Mm.
which is another place that it can overlap. A cozy mystery role playing game would be phenomenal. It's something I'm thinking about developing, but it would
Mm-hmm.
absolutely, I would absolutely love a game like that. But not, but going back to Torque, it is incredibly well done in terms of its layout, its formatting, the color choices. You could tell that his team are professional graphic artists
Mm-hmm.
for sports or at least race car driving. It's beautiful and brilliant. And he believes, and he says this all the time in live plays and in the book, that this is a toolkit and to take the parts and to build your own thing, which is the
Mm-hmm.
reason why we're using it. And the fact that it, when you play the rally portions, it actually feels like the cars are going up and down the road. We're using that for for the car portions of the Sugar Evil game system, which will include Medusa trucking, which is about going and picking up carcasses from monster hunts and protecting yourself from crooked police, poachers, and pirates. We're going to do a death race one, which will be based on that strip of road between the Inner Empire and Las Vegas. That 4 hour
Mm-hmm.
stretch where nothing and everything happens. There ain't nothing out there, but everything happens. There's going to be Death Rally Race. That's going to be Kit's game. And we're also going to do it for a roller derby game, roller derby RPG, because the
Mm-hmm.
mechanics overlap for anything where you want fast paced action and the feeling of movement. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what I love about it, because as you go to rounds, everything shifts down a square and some things fall off and take damage, and you have to constantly be trying to move up and clear lanes. It is such a fun thing, and I'm looking forward. I will give you a link, so um, the links to some live play
Okay.
because it's fun. And when we get closer to demonstrating this for everyone, I'll put a video up. But I'm working on the vehicles for that. The second thing that I'm a fan and loving this week is my kombucha. I have never made. I've heard of kombucha when I was like 19 years old. I'm like, a mushroom that pisses tea. What is this? And it would be like 20 years. I think I was like in my late 30s when I actually had kombucha,
Mm-hmm.
like the fizzy pop sort of kombucha with so much ginger just clean your insides and your all your nasal cavities.
Right.
Yeah, I had some of that and I was hooked. I was like, drinking vinegar, yes. And then I found out that drinking vinegar was a thing. It is a vinegar that you make with fruit and then you back sweeten and then you reduce and you drink it with soda water. I found that
Hmm.
out and I was like, I need to have that in my life. So I started researching and started researching how to how to make kombucha, and they both comes from a SCOBY, or a self-contained organism for bacteria and yeast. Think of it as an apartment building for all the good bacteria needed to make things that taste like vinegar. So I got myself a SCOBY, and Bill won't stop with the Scooby Doo puns.
Well, I mean, you had to see that
I
coming.
did see it coming, but I forget because Bill is such a stoic character, very stoic, very serious
Mm-hmm.
man. when I'm sitting up there looking, checking it, because you have to check the kombucha, make sure that
Hmm.
the seal, not the seal, but the cover is on, so things don't get into
Yeah.
it. So I'm going
Hmm.
to look, and he's like, "So how's the scuba through?" I'm like, "Don't do that." And I have to get the scuba. No, stop it! I have to get that all week. It's kind of funny, but on the other hand, it's kind of irritating. So, but it gives him joy. So, and it doesn't hurt me. So, just let him have it.
Right.
But I made it. Traditionally, you make it with green tea, but I was feeling frisky, and I made it with some Tazo Earl Grey and a
Oh.
Palancillo. Do you know what that is? The cone of organic sugar.
No, what is it? Say
It's
it
a
again.
Palancillo,
Okay.
Piancilea. That's the two L's and O.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a cone, and it's
Okay.
organic cane sugar. It has a very molasses taste, and it's solid, and it's magical. And I use it 1 for 1 for brown sugar in a lot of recipes,
Hmm.
and it's just so good. So I used
Interesting.
that, and since it was a tougher sugar, my poor Scooby fought for its life, but it ended up making another one. And when I tell you the molasses hints and the bergamot and the lemon,
Hmm.
and it tastes a little vinegary, and the aftertaste is a little vinegary, and it's just set off by the lemon. I am in love with this. And so I made another batch, and this time I'm just using white sugar and see if there's a difference.
Hmm.
And if there isn't, I'm going back to the cones because, oh, that is lovely. And this is probably going in the SRD.
Okay.
Speaking of SRDs, and we're talking about what we're going to do for our book Bible.
Hmm.
So, what are we doing for your book Bible by the time we meet next Thursday?
From Okay. So I need to. So I have a Witchery 101 is what I went back and looked because I couldn't remember the thing that I built for
Hmm.
Ream. That is my nonfiction
Yeah.
stuff is called Witchery 101. So I need to update the Wiccan holidays because I was doing them as they were happening, and two of them have happened that I haven't written about yet. So I need to catch up those two, and then I need to catch up. I was doing um, a worksheet on tarot cards. I was doing one worksheet per
Hmm.
card, um, and then I was doing one card a week.
Right.
So I have two that I started that I didn't finish.
Hmm.
So probably between now and next week, I can finish those two and then update the two missing holidays. And then I've started getting feedback on from my beta readers, so I want to go back into the manuscript and make some corrections. It looks like, for the most part, they are reasonably
Hmm.
happy. My one beta reader is the only one who's gotten all the way to the end,
Hmm.
but she only had, I think, 4 chapters that she rated less than 5 out of 5.
Oh,
So I was like, all right, I'll go fix
right.
those. And then I have some notes that I had made myself before I sent it to the beta readers that I was like, whether they say anything or not, these are things that I need to
Right.
fix. Because it occurred to me on rereading the first book as I was prepping for this that there are some plot holes in the first book. I mean, they're not really plot holes, but there's stuff that didn't get tied up
Hmm.
that probably should get addressed before the second book
Right.
ends. So I'm gonna start working on that. I probably this week I probably won't finish it because I'll have beta readers. I gave them 3 weeks to do
Right.
it, so I'll probably still be getting feedback until the end of next week.
Let me ask
Um,
this. Those 4 articles, the 2 tarot card worksheets, and then the two holidays, is that a
mhm.
small task?
Yeah, the holidays are short. I just do like a paragraph explaining what the holiday
Uh-huh.
is, and then the worksheets are a template, so I just have to fill in the information.
Ah, okay.
Um,
Because I want to
so
make
it
sure
shouldn't.
that these things are what we would consider a small win. That
Hmm.
way it's easily achievable. And if
Hmm.
it isn't achievable, it's easy to pinpoint what we're not digging about this. Right?
That's true.
Okay. So
Yeah.
I'm like, your choices are your own. You full grown. But I'm talking about for the purposes of the podcast, I like our goals to
Hmm.
be small wins. So we can
Okay.
talk about our small wins. All
Yeah.
right. My small win for this week is to just finish the cars or the
Hmm.
vehicles for the game, get the second I have to make sure that the second episode made it to the FTP because
Hmm.
that also died
Oh
when
no.
that died. So I have to make sure that I can find it again and get that restarted and uploaded. Then I'm going to upload the graphics to the site and
Hmm.
then work on the pages. What has been delaying me once again is that I spent all of last week fixing websites. So now that the websites are fixed, please Lord let them be fixed.
Right.
We can, yes, let's cross ourselves, fingers crossed. I can start putting stuff there. If that's the case, then I'm going to put up the graphics, put in the show notes, and start filling out the pages. All
Okay.
right. And that's what I'm doing. I'm doing the vehicles and I'm doing those two uploads, the two pages for the two episodes that we have already.
Now, is that small? Because that doesn't sound small either. After you told me about all those cars you came up
Right.
with.
It is small because every day there's I'm just making templates for cars,
Okay.
and the major difference between them at this stage is one move.
Hmm.
So I let's say we have small car, and they all have a
Hmm.
different special move, right?
Okay.
And then I assign a card that I think would fit the vibe. I'm not drawing or
Hmm.
anything. I'm literally going onto Google, taking something and putting it into the document for reference.
Okay.
And what I do is I do like a set in the morning and a set in the afternoon. Like I lay out the templates and I fill in the special move and I give it a name and then I plop a photograph underneath it. And that's what I'm doing for
Hmm.
right now because Kit is providing um, other things for the vehicles that I have to plug in.
Hmm.
So much like your worksheets, it's a template and go bloop bloop bloop
Hmm.
because we built a process.
Okay.
Bloop 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 because I know how to make a table.
Yeah.
We're gonna do that. So yes, that is small work. Those are small wins. Sorry, it's a big task broken down into small wins spread out throughout the week. Okay.
Excellent.
And the second thing, those pages, that is me during my sit down training because I want to train myself.
Hmm.
I want to train back into sitting at a desk and working
Hmm.
because I lost that. I'm
Hmm.
a, I feel more comfortable on a bed writing than I am in a chair, and that's doing bad things for my 51-year-old back. I want to train myself to like sit and work for a 4 hour block. So that's what,
Yeah. So then you can feel like you have an end
yes.
to it. Like, yeah, that makes sense.
And that's what I'm doing with that. I am not only getting those pages up, but I'm doing my sit down in a chair training.
You're building endurance.
Yes, that endurance training. And then I will rest. So
There
those
you
are,
go.
and it's a small win because I'll
Mhm.
probably break it up in two sessions, but I'm going to aim for it, get my little 75% and do the other 25% the next day. And then I'll have another thing done.